Hey, everybody in quarantine. This one is for you. So, I wanted to make you a quick video and let you know that we have officially started Unit 6 and do not want you all to get behind. Today, we started taking notes. So, I'll show you how to set those up in just a sec. But what Unit 6 is all about, kind of the opposite of agriculture. In this case, we're going to be studying cities and urban land patterns. And in 6.1, we're going to start very basic and explaining processes that basically why people go to the cities and what those cities look like and how they kind of have to function. So if you want to do 3-column notes, if that works for you, I can also email you electronic copy if you want of this, and you can type in the notes and we can print them when you get here. But it's pretty simple if you just want to do the origins of city at the top and then site and situation and just leave enough room out to the side for a definition and an example. And then on the second part of these notes, it's going to be influences of urbanization. Essentially, those 4 things are what drives people to the cities. So transportation communication is the first one. And at the bottom, if you can't see that because of that toolbar, it's government policies. And again, just leave enough room for like details and then an example. Okay, we're going to go ahead and dive in here. So first, site and situation. So site is going to mirror a little bit of what we talked about in Unit 1 on absolute location. So site features are specific factors like climate, quality of soil, natural resources, or even access to water. Those are going to be site factors, say in a city. Okay, absolute. And then for situation factors are going to be more like connections around that city. So, for example, is there a river nearby that you can use for transportation? Is there trading opportunities? So, those are going to be situational factors and more so tied to not absolute location, but relative location. And relative location, remember, is a location in relation to other locations. All right, so those 2 terms are really important moving forward when we talk about cities. Okay, and then I'm going to give you some good examples here. First, for site, the Nile civilization is what we talked about in class. And these are specific site features for the Nile civilization. Why it was so successful is because fresh water was available there and plenty of food, and the soil and the climate were great for farming. And even though there was a desert nearby, the way they benefited from that is it served as a protection from like invasions and such. Okay, so that again is an example of site. And then an example of situation is going to be the location of Constantinople. And that is a situational factor because of its location. It was right there in between 2 continents. It kind of merged Europe and Asia together. And again, its location was in between 2 major seas, the Mediterranean and Black Sea. And I even had the students mention the Silk Road in their notes because that was one of the major world trade routes that was also a situational factor to Constantinople. Okay? So that is site and situation, and we are going to, I forgot. Go ahead and put in modern day situational factors that can include waterways, railroads, and airports, and even seaports. Okay. And then another modern day example is I just threw out the new Port of New Jersey and New York. Those are the busiest ports on the East Coast of the United States. All right, the second part of your notes is going to be influences of urbanization. This is essentially what drives people to go to the cities and the infrastructure that needs to be in place for a city to be successful. So starting with changes in transportation and communication. So as far as transportation goes, like, does the city have good transportation set up? Is there streetcars available? Are there cars? Are there trolleys? If there's individual cars, are the highways set up that are efficient in getting people around town? Colorado Springs really lacks in a good transportation system. As far as communication goes, how well infrastructure set up for communication by phone, and even now that we move to cell phones, is our internet availability and even landlines set up um, for, again, connectivity with others and internet. And then I even put 5G down there, and is if you have 5G, is it limitless? Okay, so all these factors again have can have positive or negative effects on how well a city does. For an example, I think we mentioned Denver's light rail for transportation. If you've ever been on that, it's fairly new, and it does go all the way out to the airport and hits many places downtown. So a good form of communication. We're not seeing that quite yet in Colorado Springs. All right, population and migration. And basically, what I had the students write here is migration encourages cities to grow larger industries. So usually people go to a city for a job. And when they get a job, that's going to be followed by development of housing. So on our example here, I had them put in this is a favela in Rio de Janeiro, and it's developing on the outskirts of the city. And you can see that this is the city, and it does look quite modern, but this is more shanty town-ish. And you can see how this is where poverty-stricken people are living because the city has not developed affordable housing. And you can see by this picture, which is quite fascinating, how it's encroaching on the actual city. Okay. And so, again, that might be a good example for population and migration. Next is economic development and how it will influence urbanization. So, in your notes, I would just list that these are industries that definitely could be driving a city's economy. Manufacturing, tourism is really big in Colorado. People come from all over the world to come ski here, even hike our mountains. And then obviously service industry is big. And if you live in a capital, like Denver's the capital of Colorado, there's going to be political and government jobs there because that's where Congress meets. All right, so a good example for economic development, we talked about Detroit, Michigan. Used to be the automobile industry of the world, and those jobs have been outsourced. Those factories have been moved. And so once that industry was gone out of Detroit, the whole rest of the town pretty much left and became quite abandoned, almost like a ghost town, but it is recently having a comeback. But again, you have to have that economic driving force for a city to be successful. And then last is government policies. Also, decisions governments make have something to do with how successful a city can be. So what we mentioned here is you want to live in a good place. We have a lot of people wanting to move to Colorado, because they might come here on vacation and they like all the features here and how outdoorsy it is. And if we have communities with good, safe schools and entertainment options. So those are factors, but there's also things that the government can push out as being like incentives to live here financially. I mean, are our taxes high or low? Do we get rebates for maybe driving, an economic friendly car, getting solar panels on our houses? When we go to pay taxes, does the government give us breaks on that? Okay. So what we did for an example here is we talked a little bit about Amazon and how they were looking for a city to put their new headquarters in, which would produce a huge amount of jobs. But Amazon had kind of put out there that if you've got to kind of give us what we want if we're going to put our city there. So some of the things that Amazon requested was obviously to not pay a huge amount of taxes if they brought, say, their headquarters to Denver, Colorado. And then I put in a link there that's other requests that they made, was like having a street in the city named Alexa, and getting free zoo passes and so forth. Okay, so again, that's just a good example of how governments in certain, like city governments, can give breaks to big corporations that are looking to put their headquarters in that area. All right, that is it. That covers 6.1. Whoops. And I will push out another one tomorrow for 6.2. Hope you guys are doing well. Take care.